Okay.
So hello, welcome back everybody to the Just One More Level podcast. I am your co-host Christian.
And I'm your co-host John.
And today we are playing some, or have played already, some Silent Hill on the original PlayStation.
Yes.
John, it's your first time playing, right? It's both of our first time playing, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, it is my first time playing for any measurable amounts.
Measurable amount. Yeah,
yes,
and
I've
say...
sampled it.
I will say, if the intro here sounds just a little bit weird, it's because we already did this once and royally screwed it up. So we had to, I royally screwed it up. Completely my fault. So,
okay.
That's why everything's just been thrown a little bit off here. But,
yeah,
anyways,
Christian,
of course.
It's just my streaming difficulties rubbing off on you.
Yeah, that's what it is. For everybody at home, Jonathan here is streaming now. We got him set up yesterday. So if you want to check him out, I mean, of course, we'll plug it at the end as usual. But the Doorsman on Twitch, you can check him out. But anyways, about the game. So Silent Hill, the original on the PlayStation. Words. What did you think, John? How'd you like it?
Wow. I really liked it.
Right.
I thought it was legitimately scary, which is surprising.
Yes. I agree. Well, Personally, I wouldn't say like scary per se, but it's much more psychological than other games of the era, like say Resident Evil, for instance. And that's the game that I mostly compare this to more than anything else is Resident Evil. And I will say that it's so much more atmospheric. It's so much creepier than Resident Evil is in pretty much every way. And I love it, right down to the way the camera moves. That's one aspect of it. If you play the game, like as you're going through alleys and through buildings and things like that, instead of the camera just like cutting from one angle to another, it'll kind of like pan and move a little bit and in at weird angles and things like that. It's really unsettling, and it adds to that psychological horror aspect of it, and I love it. I love it.
Yeah. For those of you that are fans of The Evil Dead out there, the camera movements reminded me a lot of the Evil Dead movie, the old ones. Because when the first one, at least, the series kind of departed into sort of a horror comedy type deal, but for the first Evil Dead, it was very a lot of psychological stuff was going on, especially towards the end, because all of Ash's friends were dead, and he was stuck in his cabin, and the camera kept moving over top of his head and in very different ways, things that hadn't really been done, before in a horror movie. So it was very, very nice to see something like that in a game.
Yeah, and I feel that's kind of similar to how this game was as well. I mean, obviously I haven't played every horror game made, especially back then, but I feel, just again from my limited experience with games like Resident Evil and things like that, I feel that kind of camera movement and things as part of setting the atmosphere, I feel that was unique at the time that this game was made as well, that it was kind of, if not the first, then one of the first to do something like that, and it really adds a lot to the experience. It really, really does. The first time I saw that camera move like that, I was just like, whoa, I was a little bit unsettled with it.
Exactly. Well, and I totally agree. When I was playing it, I kept comparing it to Resident Evil as well, because it's just hard not. It was
and I mean, to this day, right? Exactly.
And it's just it's definitely inspired by, if that's the word that you want to use. The inventory system is very similar. It's not as limited as Resident Evil, which I appreciated, because one of the most frustrating things about Resident Evil early game is how limited your inventory is. How much inventory you need. They keep making you go on these fetch quests to solve these puzzles, and you have to keep running back to your box.
Right.
To swap items in and out, to get different items out of the box to go do what you need to do. And you're like, oh, come on, just let me carry all the pieces at one time and my gun and my health.
Right, yeah.
And Silent Hill lets you do that. There was a part very early in the game where you needed 3 keys to unlock the door. And you had to go out into the map and find these 3 keys, and then
in Silent Hill, to be specific. He's talking about Silent Hill right now. Yeah.
I'm talking about Silent Hill very early on. And I had my gun and my flashlight and my ammo and my health drink and all 3 keys in my inventory, and everything was fine. I still felt very nervous, like I needed to survive, and because I think that's what Resident Evil was trying to go for, was you don't have a lot of space. You can only carry what you have on. You know,
right. And if I'm not mistaken, feeling. Both of these games are marketed as being survival horror, right? That's kind of the whole thing, is to survive. That's kind of your goal, right? You have limited amount of ammunition. You don't just have like an unlimited amount of gunpowder that you can throw at your enemies and things like that. You have to play a little bit smart. You have to know when to dodge them, when to actually try to kill the enemies and things like that. And then, of course, the puzzle solving. So there's a lot of similarities between the two, but there's a lot different as well. Like, I could imagine, I personally enjoy both games, but I could see a situation where somebody would actually like one and not the other. I could see that being a thing, just because even though there are all those similarities, it's just that different as well.
It is, yes. And for anybody wondering, by the way, not next week, at the end of this week, we have a Halloween special coming out in which we played Resident Evil 4. So if anybody's curious why we keep referencing the first Resident Evil, we have just recently played it. It'll be coming out later this week. So,
not Resident Evil 4, just because he said, the way you said it kind of sounded like Resident Evil 4.
No.
Playing the first Resident Evil for the Halloween special that we'll be doing.
For the Halloween special, yes. We just recently played the first Resident Evil, which is pioneered the genre of survival horror, at least in the modern age, or pretty much period. And it came out on the PlayStation just a couple years before Silent Hill. So Silent Hill was very much inspired by it. And I think that there's just a lot of things that Silent Hill did better. Like we've already mentioned, the inventory system, the way that the fixed camera angles are handled. Because the camera's not always...
And on stream, you can see it right now, the way the camera kind of moves and everything like that.
And I think I mentioned it on my stream. I think that the way they got around having the camera at fixed angles at all times was that dense fog. I would bet my bottom dollar that there's nothing rendered beyond that fog.
And I'm like 99% sure that the fog was put in as a workaround for the limitations of the power of the PlayStation 1. I'm like 99% sure. But saying that, though, I also believe that it played in its favor at the end of the day. Because it's supposed to be a very dark and creepy game, right? You're not supposed to know what's around the corner. And they added the fog. I don't know what order they added things in, but you have that dense fog. You can't see things very far in front of you, but they give you that radio. So there's a radio you pick up right in the beginning of the game, and it'll start ringing. It'll start going off whenever there's certain creatures getting close to you or like in the vicinity of you. So it gives you these audio cues, and the way the radio goes off is kind of like this repetitive sound that's kind of spooky and just unnerving, right? Because it's the same kind of ringing over and over and over again.
Right.
And then once you get really close to the enemies, like they're just out of the distance of the fog, then you'll hear like the flapping of wings or the paws of a dog or the heels of a enemy walking across the ground. Yeah, exactly. Like the audio as well. Like it's not just the visual design. The audio design is it is on point.
Yes,
it is
absolutely.
I would say
the whole time.
Yeah, the whole time. I would say, in my personal opinion, this game did just about everything better than Resident Evil did. Yeah. I can't personally think of a single thing that I liked better in Resident Evil than Silent Hill. In my hour playthrough of it. Yeah. Like, Resident Evil is a bit more puzzly, I guess. So if you really like the puzzle aspect of video games, then there's that. But that's about it. That's about the only thing I got.
But in a way, I feel like in Resident Evil, the clues aren't as apparent at all times. I feel like the clues were a little bit more. And maybe this is a turnoff for some people. I know a lot of people complain about the challenge in games and they don't want the game to hold their hand. But I felt like the clues were like a little bit more spot on. And I remember something that this game definitely did right that I was thinking while playing Resident Evil was he makes marks on his map.
Yeah, I know, which is
little
huge,
circles,
right?
Little X's and things like that. And I remember, like in this most recent playthrough of Resident Evil, I was tempted to look up a walkthrough, but I was like, "All right, I don't want to do that again. I don't want to. I'm gonna try. I can get this. I can figure this out.
Right?
I can do this." But I did look up a reference map because you're exploring this mansion and you're going over and over and over again, like back and forth through all these different corridors. But I still could not memorize like all the things that the armor key opened and all the things that the sword key opened or the helmet key. And I was like, okay, great. Now I have the sword keys. So what can I open with it? And I was just like, I'm gonna have to go through this whole mansion to figure out what I can open with this key.
I'm a little. So I definitely get what you're saying, but unfortunately, I don't quite have the same perspective on it as you do. Two reasons. One, I beat Resident Evil way back in the day. Admittedly, have forgotten most of it at this point, but I have beaten the original Resident Evil before. But just recently, for the other podcast that I do, I beat the Resident Evil remake for the GameCube.
Right.
So going back and playing the first Resident Evil game, I didn't quite have that same problem. But on the GameCube version, it was terrible. Like, they give you a little bit more hints on the map on the GameCube version, but I spent a good, 4 hours, maybe 3 hours, just trying to figure out the damn mansion. Like, I was so lost and confused. It was
not
ridiculous.
That way on the PS1 version? Because I haven't played that one yet. I fully intend on playing it before we stream, because that's the technical one that we're supposed to be playing. So I'm gonna play a little bit of it. But recently I was out of town, so I only have my Switch with me. And I was
you were playing the remake,
I was playing the remake of it on the GameCube, bro.
So the PlayStation 1 version does have some differences, including the map, but the map is also simplified on the PlayStation 1 version as well. In my opinion, it's not as confusing, and the puzzles are a lot more streamlined, in my opinion. So you may find that some of the things that you're talking about there is a little bit easier, but we'll talk about Resident Evil more here in a few days.
Resident Evil for another day, but so back to Silent Hill. So yes, so far we've covered inventory. I feel handled much better on Silent Hill. There's no limit that I can see.
Right, in the first hour or so that both of us played for the podcast, no issues with the inventory system. Both of us were able to pick up everything that we found, and we never got that message that the inventory was full or anything like that. So
and when you don't need something anymore, it just automatically discards.
Which is a huge help.
Some of the things that kind of bogged down in Resident Evil was that there's a text box for everything. It says, I don't think I need the sword key anymore. Do I want to discard the sword key?
Why wouldn't I? I'm done with it. Get rid of it. Like, you don't have to tell me, just get rid of it.
Exactly. But when I was playing Silent Hill, there's there's moments where you come across a note or something that you find that tells you your hint, and it keeps it in the inventory until you get to the place where the hint was talking about, and then it's gone.
And then it just disappears. Right. That's so good. Like, I would be fine even with it if it popped up and said, I don't need this anymore, and then it just got rid of it. Why ask the question? Why make me confirm that I want to get rid of it? Or worse, accidentally click no, which is something I did in my GameCube remake replay. Accidentally say no, and then just have this thing that I'm done with that's now just taking up a slot in my
now you gotta go
box.
Back to the box.
Yeah, like, just why? There's actually no point to it. It's ridiculous.
Right. So yes, inventory, camera. They fixed the camera. I'm gonna say that, and I know so many people are proponents of the fixed camera and the tank controls, and I agree. For Resident Evil, it works. It does work for what they were going for. That's how they were able to get some decent looking graphics on the PlayStation 1, because they were able to get all of those set up, spaces. Yeah,
specific shots. They were able to basically build scenes, if you think of it like making a movie, you build your set, and then you never turn the camera around, because once you turn the camera around, there's just nothing there. It's just a bunch of trash. But you're able to spend twice as much time making sure that set looks perfect. And it's pretty much the same thing with video games with fixed camera angles. Yeah. But I don't think there's any way Silent Hill could have done that, right? Because you have this big open space that you're moving around. You're not stuck in just rooms like you are in Resident Evil. You're walking down streets and down alleyways and exploring the fronts of different houses and schools and hospitals. And there's no way. It's too open for a fixed camera game, I feel like.
I think they did some of the best things, because some of my favorite parts about early film and having to work with practical effects and having to do what they had to do. Sometimes they had to get super creative with the way they told the story, because they were so limited. And that's something that happens in video games as well. Famously, Jaws. The shark, the animatronic puppet shark that they were working with, would break every day. So he had to get creative with what he did with the movie, and so he instead chose to make it more suspenseful and to make you more afraid of getting in the water. It was more ambiguous. You didn't know if it was down there. You would just see the camera moving through the water, and you'd hear that classic music, and you'd be like, oh, something's about to happen.
Right.
You know what I mean? He had to get creative because he was limited with what he had to work with. And I feel like this game did that exact same thing.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah, that's like an exact parallel to the radio that we were talking about earlier, right? Like, so it makes you scared of getting near these creatures because you know they're coming. That radio starts going off. You know they're there somewhere. And now you have that anticipation. Yeah, that anticipation gets to you. You start getting nervous. And
when you are in cramped spaces, when they were forced to do fixed perspective, they did something creative with it. Like we talked about, they moved the camera around in a disorienting way, but in a way that you were still able to kind of, experience the game. Like one of the things that I always complain about with old Resident Evil type games is that sometimes if I walk just out of frame enough, it switches the camera angle, and now I can't see what I'm fighting anymore. The zombie stuck in the other scene, but I'm in this one now. But I need to back up because I need to stay out of his reach. So now I have to back up even more and let him come towards me so that I can finally see him again. And now I can aim and
which I feel is pretty rare in Resident Evil, but certainly does happen. Yeah. And that is, of course, the biggest bonus, in my opinion, to having the non-fixed camera, the controllable camera or behind-the-shoulder camera, whatever you want to call it, is that, of course, if the enemy's one place, you can just turn towards the enemy and, of course, see what's going on, which, of course, is very important in games like this, Resident Evil as well. But I don't know. I still loved fixed camera angles. I am one of the people that absolutely loves fixed camera angles. But again, I don't think there was any way they could have done it for the entirety of Silent Hill.
Sure.
And because of, like, whenever you are in alleys and in, like, the diner or whatever, the cafe that we're in now on the stream and things like that, they have the fixed camera angles for these sections. And honestly, I think it's better for it. Because you think of other games where you have a camera that's never a fixed angle, and what happens whenever you're put in a cramped space is the camera ends up getting stuck on things or like clips through a wall, and then you can't see, and it's just I would much rather have these fixed camera angles inside these smaller spaces than to have a controllable camera and just have to fight with it constantly. It's something that I actually think modern day games could use a little bit more, in my opinion.
I think they could to a degree, like you were mentioning, like the remake of, well, not the remake, but the newest God of War was able to achieve just like seamless transition. So
from beginning to end, just one long camera shot.
Sure, it's kind of the same concept. When they got into a closed space and they wanted to tell their story, they stopped letting the player control the camera, and they went into that camera control. I know it's just a different way to do a cutscene, but it's kind of that same thing you were talking about, like in this what we're seeing right now, what we just saw, going over to the little notepad to save. It closed in. You can move throughout much of the cafe with an open camera, like a controllable camera. You can kind of move around in the cafe, but there's the different corners.
Where it automatically places the camera, or as you move towards the door, it'll pull the camera in behind the player as you move towards the door to kind of center the screen on it and things like that. It's very cinematic almost, right?
It is.
It's almost like an early version, kind of like what you were saying with God of War. They were trying to make it cinematic by having it be one long camera shot from beginning to end without any seams or cuts. This is almost like an early version of that in some ways. Obviously there are cuts and things like that, but it is very cinematic, and I think that adds to the atmosphere and to the creepiness to it.
Yes. So I want to talk about the enemies.
Definitely.
early game. You got some basic creepy things. The zombie dogs are back from Resident Evil. They're not zombie dogs though. They're meat dogs. I call them
meat dogs. Yes.
They're like, because they're just like, skinless dogs,
right?
Which serve pretty well as a basic enemy type. And then you got some pterodactyls.
I don't know what the enemy names are in this game, but essentially, I mean, you guys saw us fight one there in the cafe type area. If you're watching the stream or watching this on YouTube later, I don't. What was that? Like, what were those meant to be? Right? Because the dogs make sense.
Pterodactyl.
Right? They're dogs. The little like mummy children makes sense. That's nightmare fuel of a sort, but it still has like real world parallels.
Right.
And then all of a sudden you get a pterodactyl attacking you. Like
it's a pterodactyl.
Where's the real life parallel? I don't know.
Dinosaurs
I guess,
real,
yeah.
man.
Obviously, in Silent Hill universe, yeah. Still alive and kicking, obviously.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, so, I mean, the pterodactyl I thought was a little bit weird, but it does fit in Silent Hill. Like, I'm not surprised to see it in Silent Hill until I sit down and think about it, right? Like, now I'm like, what the hell was that pterodactyl? But when I was playing the game, I was like, oh yeah, of course I'm being attacked by a giant pterodactyl. And why wouldn't I be?
Perfect sense. Perfect logical sense.
Yeah.
Right, so, and as the game progresses, the enemies get more difficult and they get scarier. I made it to the school. You didn't quite make it to the school.
I made it to the school. I just didn't play anymore. I made it to the school, explored the first like 2-3 rooms, saved, and that was the end of my roughly hour playtime.
Right. Yes. So I made it to the school, and I made it through the school for the most part. And you are greeted by some more ghost children, some mummy children, and then you're
creepy little children, man. Creepy.
They're so creepy. And then
like, there's something about it being children too that just makes it that much worse. And it's something you don't see in video games very much, like or movies in general. Right? Yeah, it's almost like a little taboo, right? To have like to insinuate children and death kind of together, or to kind of have that parallel.
Right. Well, listen, it gets worse.
Yes.
Billy Mays here. It gets worse. Okay? Later on, when you're up in the top floors of the school, the children get scarier, okay? There's like an even smaller, completely dark, shadowy baby looking thing walking around.
That sounds wonderful, yeah.
And it just sort of pulses and fades in and out. I don't see it like...
Yeah, that sounds great. That's what I want.
I don't see it like all the time, but I was playing and I was avoiding the mummy children, like running through the classrooms and different things. And I just hear this moan, this like baby like whine out of the distance. And I turned around and I was like, what is that? Nuh-uh. No.
Oh, good. Yeah.
Yeah. So this game, in addition to improving upon the Resident Evil model, also managed to legitimately scare me. Resident Evil has a few kind of jump scary moments.
Yeah.
Where I'm not expecting that and it jumps out, which is good. I like that. But this game like creeps in. It reminds me very much of creepypasta indie titles that have surfaced a lot in the last 10 years or so. A lot of...
sorry to interrupt, real quick plug. Another game that we'll be playing for the Halloween special, Structural, a little tiny indie creepypasta kind of thing with parallels to real life.
Right.
Very interesting. I don't think John's played it yet, but I just want to plug that real quick.
Yep. But yeah, so it gets in there. And I was going into this a fan of the movie. I own the movie. I've seen the movie a few times. I love the movie.
Which I'm going to have to borrow that from you because it's been so long since I've seen the movie. I remember enjoying it when I did see it, but it's been a long time. Long time.
Second movie, not that good.
Right, yeah. We'll just pretend that didn't happen.
Sorry for fans of the second movie. I know Andrew's a fan of the second movie. I just... no.
Trash.
Yeah, they romanticize Pyramid Head. It gets weird. John Harrington's in it. That's his name, right? Jon Snow?
I don't know. It's Jon Snow.
What's Jon Snow's real name?
I don't remember his name now.
John Kensington? I think his real name's John, right? No,
I don't think so.
Kit Harington.
Kit, that's it.
His name.
Kit Harington. Yeah, there you go.
I was mashing everything up together. Kit Harington. That's his name. He's in it. He plays like a romantic lead.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I'm sure I've seen it, but it's been so long I just don't remember, to be honest.
It's weird. But I was really curious going into it because the storyline of the movie is that the little girl character has ties to Silent Hill. Like she's an orphan and she's adopted by Sean Bean and his wife, who in the game you play as a male character who's looking for his daughter, but in the movie the main character is a girl. Who is the adoptive mother of the little girl,
the child. Yeah.
So you find out during the movie that the girl has ties to Silent Hill because she was born there, and that Silent Hill, what's actually happening, the reason that you're shifting between this weird industrial dark ghost dimension, and the normal creepy Silent Hill is because there's a secret cult in this town that are trying to open a rift in space-time. But they didn't succeed. They didn't do it right.
And I'm not positive because it's been so. I have never beat this original game for the PS1. I've played the reimagination of it for the PS2, Shattered Memories. Right. But I don't think that's actually the storyline of Silent Hill 1.
Okay.
Like, at all. I don't believe. I could be wrong. Again, correct me if I'm wrong. But
yeah. Well,
I'm
I know
pretty
they merged a few things, and I haven't played through the entire first game, but I believe Pyramid Head gets introduced in the second game.
That sounds right to me. I'm not positive, but that sounds right.
Because like I said, I played a decent amount of the second game a very long time ago, just because I was at my friend's house and he had it. So I've played a bit of the second game, and I remember Pyramid Head being in that game.
Right.
But Pyramid Head's in the movie, and I know the movie is supposed to be based generally on the storyline of the first one, but so I don't think they're trying to open a rift in space-time. It's not like Doctor Who. I think they're trying to pray or something. They're trying to pray to some kind of entity to, I don't know, open Heaven's Gate or Hell's Gate, and try to merge the ghost reality with their reality. But I do know that the most recent Silent Hills endeavor, which was abandoned, was going to play into multiple realities. And that, throughout the games, it was teased that what you're looking at in Silent Hill is not paranormal, but rather multi-dimensional. It's the product of a multi-dimensional fracture that is bleeding different realities into one.
Sure.
And that was the reason, if you guys remember, PT, playable trailer.
Yeah.
For the PlayStation 4, when that was out and that was a thing and everybody was trending and doing it, you would just walk through one hallway. But every time you got to the end of the hallway and got through the door, the hallway would reset and be slightly different. And you would have to figure out all of these clues and all of these puzzles. Every time you made a pass through the hallway, it would be just a little bit different. And eventually it got grotesque and horrible. And there was a ghost lady jumping out at you and being mean. But if you got all the clues and got all the patterns just right at the end, you were treated to a teaser starring Norman Reedus, directed by Guillermo del Toro, and it was going to be a brand new Silent Hill game called Silent Hills, plural.
Yeah.
So they were trying to tease pretty heavily that it was going to involve multiple dimensions or multiple realities, and they were all compounding on each other. Which
is weird to me. I mean, I don't pretend to know the history of Silent Hill that well. I've only ever played a couple of the games. But I always understood Silent Hill to be more about like psychosis and mental disorders and anxiety than to be like a multiverse type deal.
Well, and it very well could have been. I mean, that could have been the original intention, straight up. And then,
and you say Silent Hills. One of the things that, like, I never even thought about this until now. Silent Hills. It's kind of funny because there's actually at least two different Silent Hills. The movies are placed in Silent Hills, West Virginia, is the canon location.
Yes.
But video games is actually believed to be placed in Silent Hill, Maine.
Yes.
Is the location for the majority of the video games. So I wonder. I don't know. It's just kind of, there's multiple different canon locations for Silent Hills or for Silent Hill, and then it's just kind of. I don't know. Like I said, I don't know if that actually mattered at all to Kojima's idea there or not. Of course, now we'll never know. Presumably, because that game was canceled. But
I'm so upset about that. I'm still upset about it to this day. Yeah. Because you know what he did? They canceled that game, and then him and Norman Reedus made Death Stranding.
Yeah. Yeah. Which I haven't played. I've heard a lot of good things and a lot of bad things about it, obviously, but I haven't played it myself. So
I've heard I've heard some pretty damaging critical reviews. I'd probably like it because I'm a little pretentious, but
right.
I've heard some critical panning with Death Stranding, and regardless, it's not Silent Hill. So
not at all.
But yeah. So what anything else you got? You want to build upon?
Not particularly. I mean, I think we covered all the main things. It's just it's a really good game that's great on atmosphere. Criticisms. Do I have any major criticism? The controls are a little wonky at times. It's like Resident Evil. You would probably get used to it after a little while with the tank controls, right? But just hopping into it, it was a little bit wonky here and there. The aiming was a little bit weird sometimes. Like if enemies get a little too far sometimes, because you auto aim at enemies. Like you don't aim up or down or anything like that. You just point in their general direction. The gun's supposed to aim at them. But there are times where I feel like I should be aiming at them and it just doesn't for whatever reason.
I agree. Yeah.
But I mean, that's pretty much it as far as like criticisms go of the game, right? Like
I would say so. Yeah.
It's really good. Like
I mean, I
really,
suppose
really
you
good.
could criticize like the voice acting, but that's
Oh, sure, but I mean, like, again, Resident Evil, if you compare it to something like that, this is amazing compared to the original. The remake, I don't know if you know or not, the remake for GameCube and Switch that you've been playing, they actually redid the voice acting for that.
Yeah.
The original's even worse.
It's even,
It's bad. It's bad.
I don't know. And I commented that on the stream a little bit. Did they not tell him what was going on? Like the voice actor? Like I commented on that. I was like, did they just give him a basic emotion? Did they just say, for this line you're supposed to be surprised, or for this line you're supposed to be fear or anything? Did they not explain to him what he was seeing? You're
Honestly, I
hell
don't know.
Open up. Imagine the most grotesque monsters.
Right.
that you can imagine. That's what's happening around you right now. You are just horrified.
Right. No, barely affected at all.
Right.
It actually reminds me of John. It's not a game I think you've ever played, but The Witcher. I was playing it on stream the other day, and a gentleman in chat here, Garrick Zero there, he was telling me about how much better the Polish voice acting is, and actually got me to look up the original voice acting in Polish for the game, because that's where the game's made, is in Poland, based off of a Polish book series, of course, The Witcher. Anyways, and it was night and day, the difference between it. The voice acting isn't necessarily bad for The Witcher in English, but it's very monotone and one-dimensional.
Right.
Whereas, like, then you look at the Polish version of it, and not only did they edit the script when they brought it to English, but there is so much more character in the voices. And one of the most glaring differences between the two, again, that he pointed out to me, Garrick there pointed out to me, was there are scenes where they drink, right? They get drunk a lot in the game.
Right.
Excuse me. And in the English version of it, they just sound the same as they progressively get more and more drunk. Like, there's no difference to their voice acting. But then in the Polish version, they are, like, slurring their words, and, like, their pitch is changing and things like that. Like, it's very obvious that they are drunk just by hearing them.
Maybe they.
So I wonder if it's like a similar situation. Well, maybe, but I wonder if it's a similar kind of situation.
Right.
With the two games. Maybe they really do just like give them a script. Maybe they don't show them what's going on or anything for these translations here. I don't know. But
well, I know it's not uncommon, and video games are held in a much higher esteem these days.
Than they definitely were. Now. Yeah.
So these voice actors coming in, they could have been complete amateurs off the street.
Quite possibly, yeah.
They could have been anybody that were called, and they probably gave them $100 and a bologna sandwich.
Right. Thanks for your time. Pat on the back. Kick them out the door.
To come in and do a 6-hour cold read for Silent Hill. And, nobody knew Silent Hill was going to explode like it did. The guy just come in, and they just, gave him a hard copy, and they were just like, I need you to say these 250 lines. And in parentheses beside the lines are going to be the emotions that I'm going to need you to try to convey. All right. One take. Here we go.
Oh, Lord.
That's what it sounds like, at least.
Probably. I would not be surprised one bit. Now, that being said, I don't think the voice acting takes away from Silent Hill. In the original Resident Evil, it definitely took away from the creepy factor of it.
Yeah.
It made it more comical, in my opinion, almost laughable at times, like a really poorly put together B movie kind of deal. Like,
I would counter by saying it made it 100% laughable.
Yes,
and memeable.
I mean, honestly, there were plenty of times where I just started laughing at Resident Evil, because it's like, what is this? What is going on? What is this voice acting right now? And in some ways, I actually think it improved Resident Evil as a game. At the very least, it keeps it in my mind, right? Oh, yeah, that's that game that tried to be creepy, but was actually just laughable.
Right. Yeah.
This game isn't that bad with the voice acting, but it is still pretty...
My God. Those things terrify me. Those those little creepy, the dark children. I'm telling you, listen, I'm gonna be uploading on YouTube probably tomorrow or the next day. The clip highlights. I'll put them in there. You let me know what you think, because I was terrified. Right.
Oh, I'm sure they are creepy as hell. Yeah, I believe it. Any final words other than your creepy children?
Final words. I'm definitely gonna play just one more level. In fact, I'm probably gonna stream just one more level.
Right.
I'm definitely in love. It took everything that I loved about playing Resident Evil and it elevated it to the next level.
Right.
I've always been a fan, generally speaking, of not only the genre but of Silent Hill and the Silent Hill universe. I've read up on some theories about it every now and again, and I remember fondly playing that second game, and I love the movie. I come back to the movie probably every Halloween. So being able to finally sit down and experience this with a little bit of focus and playing a decent chunk of the game, loved it. Can't recommend it highly enough.
And same for me. I mean, I'm not as big into the movie universe as you are, but I love the setting. I very much enjoyed this game from what I've played of it, and I enjoyed Shattered Memories quite a bit, which is the reimagination of it. So definitely I would play just one more level. Whether or not I will anytime too soon, I'm not sure, but only because I have so many other games that I'm currently trying to play through. That's the only thing holding me back. I would certainly play through this game like tomorrow if I didn't already have a lot of other stuff on my plate to do. Right. And highly recommend it to anybody who can play it and is a fan of survival horror or just creepy atmospheric games in general. I highly recommend.
Yeah, and if I wasn't playing through, I'm sorry, what's it called? The Baba.
Yes, the Baba.
the little PS1 theme game.
Oh, Structural. Yes.
Structural. Thank you. My good. And Phasmophobia, topical, trending. If I wasn't going to be playing through those for the Halloween episode, then yes, I would be streaming Silent Hill tomorrow as soon as possible. That's
right.
That's what I would be doing.
So speaking of that, though, so John listed most of the games there. Here on Halloween Day, October 31st, we will be releasing a Halloween special. We will, of course, be covering Phasmophobia, the original Resident Evil, the first one on PS1, Structural, just this little indie game that I don't think can get nearly enough attention. And Ghosts and Goblins is the final game that we'll be looking at. Ghosts and Goblins, which is the only one I haven't played yet for the Halloween special, but I will be doing that very soon. I've played it a little bit before and always put it down after like half an hour because it kicked my ass, to be honest. So
yes. Oh my god.
So that's gonna be fun. But John, where can we find you? You recently started streaming. We covered that a little bit, but you want to plug the rest of your stuff as well?
I did. You can find me on Twitch at the Dorseman. I am going to try to figure out some kind of schedule to upload so you'll know when I'll be streaming. And I'm also going to try to figure out the Twitch settings so that it saves my last few streams.
Right.
Didn't do that last night. You can find me on YouTube, the Dorseman, again, channel. I'm going to be uploading stream highlights and random videos whenever I can think about uploading them.
Right.
No, I'm gonna be uploading the stream highlights weekly at least because we're doing the podcast weekly, and I'm gonna be streaming the games that we're playing for the podcast. So that's gonna be kind of like what I do, kind of like what Christian does here, but just my own special take on it. Social media, you can find me on Twitter, Dorseman, John Dorsey 1. Those are the two. It says that I don't get Twitter. It says that I'm the Dorseman on Twitter, but it says that my Twitter name,
you're at John Dorsey 1, right? But your name is John Dorsey,
right?
Or the Dorseman, sorry,
right? So, but Instagram as well, John Dorsey on Instagram. So, go ahead and follow those. Give me likes, give me subs, check out some YouTube videos, entertain yourself.
Right.
Where can we find you?
At the end of the day, that's what we're here for. We're here for entertainment. Myself, I'm obviously on stream all the Steam. You can find me here just playing random games. Right now, the two games I'm playing through most is the original Witcher game on PC and the PS3 collection of Ratchet and Clank, specifically the first one. I'll probably cover the other Ratchet and Clank games at some point, but right now I'm playing through the first one mainly. I randomly stream other things, though. I'm just a variety streamer. I don't really sit down and do one thing, although I do tend to play a lot of RPGs. And then, of course, whenever we do the games for the podcast, whether it's this podcast, Just One More Level, or my other podcast, Gaming Cog, whenever possible, I do stream myself playing those games as well. I also have a YouTube channel, stream all the Steam there as well, or stream it all maybe on YouTube. I don't know, naming things is weird. Anyways, I'm very light on the editing, to be honest. I don't usually do like highlight reels and stuff like that. It's, generally speaking, it's just the VODs. So if there's a series that you're interested in, you just want to see the whole series or whatever, or just need something to sleep to at night, there you go. YouTube.com/stream it all or stream all the Steam. It should be easy enough to find. I also have Twitter. I believe my Twitter is just Stream the Steam or something like that, though. I should probably actually just pull these things up real quick to be sure. Yeah, add Stream the Steam on Twitter, and then Stream all the Steam on YouTube. So yeah, check me out those places, and thank you so much for being here with us. Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much for tuning in to the podcast. You didn't have to, but you did, and we appreciate it. We appreciate every minute of it. We appreciate all of it. Words are hard. But no, honestly, thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in. And make sure you stop back in on October 31st for the Halloween special. And then we will have our normal episode going up a week from the time this one does, which will be on a game that I can't remember, but most likely not spooky. So, yeah. No, I believe we're going to be starting the Crash Bandicoot series. That sounds right, and you know, I have a list of all these things that I could pull up. I'm just what's it called? Just trying to make time for myself to do that real quick. And yes, the Crash Bandicoot series is what we're going to be covering after Halloween, and that'll be going up November 4th is the plan. So mark your calendar. Yep. Mark your calendar, guys. But anyways, one last time, thank you all so much for being here. Bye-bye, y'all. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Love this podcast? Support this show through the Acast supporter feature. It's up to you how much you give, and there's no regular commitment. Just click the link in the show description to support now.